Welcome to the podcast Blind Faith, where we explore faith and blindness and how they sort of interact with one another. My name is Mark Madavan, and it's my privilege to present this podcast brought to you by Torch Trust for the Blind. In each episode, I'm chatting to a different person who's encountered or experienced blindness in a different way, and we're just talking about their story and their journey a little bit. In this episode, it's my privilege to welcome Tony Taylor. So, Tony, welcome.
Thank you.
And so, Tony, I'm going to dive straight in and saying, what's your experience around blindness?
Well, I was born with eyesight disability, very very short-sighted, totally colourblind, but fortunately for myself, it's a fairly static situation. So the condition doesn't get worse, although everybody's eyes weaken with age. Mine don't weaken any more than anybody else's, but I do have the constant disability I was born with.
Because I think often we talk about sight loss and sight visual impairment or whatever title you want to put to it. It is, you go, it's sort of a spectrum, isn't there, of some folks who have like no sight and others who have different limitations. Do you find it, in fact, do you find it awkward calling it, you're saying it as a disability, or do you think, no, it really is?
And no, it's very much a disability, but it's a question of overcoming it.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to be insulting. It's because often people, maybe I just fell into the same trap, is, just colorblind. And you're going, well, actually, it's more than that, isn't it?
It is, yeah. As far as colorblindness is concerned, I'm not just the red and green, I'm totally colorblind.
So okay, so what do you see?
I see shades of light and dark, basically, and in between.
So it's everything's a grayscape, effectively.
I guess so. I don't even know what grey is, but you see where I'm coming from.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I've always said that I've always assumed that trying to see colour for myself is like somebody else looking at a black and white TV or photographs.
Okay, so at a risk of shooting myself in the foot here, but do you get annoyed or wound up when people say, "What do you see?" Like I just asked you.
No, because I'm pleased that they're interested to know. I don't go into it in great detail, but it's nice when people ask. I think it's rather nice that they ask rather than because visually, with their own eyes, they can see if I'm reading very, very closely to the paperwork. And I'm much more comfortable if somebody asks me about it rather than them wonder why on earth is he, looking the way he is at that paperwork.
I think I agree with you with my sight as well. When people say, "Well, what can you see?" I don't get upset by it. I treat that as, oh, they're interested.
Exactly.
And that's great. How has your visual impairment impacted your life along your journey? I'm guessing, this hit from youngster to oldster. How has that impacted your life?
Yes, you soon learn, as I was one of 6 children, so I had 4 siblings older than myself. My eldest sister has the same, very similar eye condition to me. But I probably took a more positive attitude to it than she did. She tended to shy away and wasn't probably helped by her parents, who inadvertently took her away from normal schooling and gave her private education, which to me there's no way was I having that, although I probably wasn't old enough to make those decisions myself. But because I had older brothers they helped me a lot, and you realise that you can't do what they do, definitely in sport, but in everything else I tried to do as well as the next person, whether it be schooling or at a place of work.
So did you find in everyday life with school and things that you lived in a way as though you didn't have the life light impairment and color impairment? Did not quite pretend that you didn't have it, but did you just always work around it, or did you say, no, this is my condition and let's deal with it?
Yeah, well, I couldn't, in my long ago when I was at school, there was the blackboard and the chalk, etc., the teachers used, and I couldn't see anything that was put on the blackboard, so that was definitely very difficult. But I used to have to go out, walk out to the front and see what the teacher was doing or writing, etc. Otherwise, I wasn't picking up on it, because in those days you weren't given any, apart from being sat in the front desk, on the front row. That was the only help you got.
And then, so going through education, did you have, what were the, how did you manage that? Because you didn't go to a separate school like your sister did. So how did you manage through school?
I think you just get on with it the best you can. It was embarrassing at times.
Mm.
You had a lot of teasing from other kids sometimes, but that's life. You learn how to deal with it. Generally, I learned very quickly to take the mickey out of myself, which made everybody, well, hopefully made most people laugh,
Yeah.
and that takes away the embarrassment.
Because I think we all try to work out mechanisms that work in our life, and I think taking not making light of it, but making light of it to try to deflect that is a way that we do.
Yeah.
Did you find that once you left school that was a technique you continued to use, or
Yes, very much so. Because people, adults as well, feel at ease. If you're light-hearted about it. If you're going to make a big fuss and want special attention and special equipment and things like that, I'd rather not have that. I'd rather just be myself and try and be like everybody else and have some fun along the way and at my own expense.
I'm not sure. It sounds like it. I think it's a coping. I think we all put different coping mechanisms
Yes.
and how we do that,
Yeah.
and that's an interesting one. I think one people. I mean, they use for other challenges in life, not just with sight, but I think people use the comedy to deflect,
Yes.
or to cope.
Yeah.
And sometimes they do that genuinely, and sometimes they do that as a real deflection. And inside the clown is crying, but outside the clown is smiling.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Confession time. Are you inside? Are you a smiling clown or a crying clown?
Probably a bit of both, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair question. That's a fair answer. So going at once you left school and into work, and you continue to manage your site. What would you say were the stretches or surprises that you encountered because of your visual impairment?
I don't know that I had any surprises as an adult. I think the surprises were more in my infancy, probably, and in the early learning years. I don't really know of any surprises as an adult.
Were you surprised by any of the reactions of people, either the way people treated you, spoke to you, anything like that?
Only if I dwelt on it. I tried not to dwell on anything like that. I mean, sometimes I think a lot of people who are, I mean, there's hundreds and thousands of people worse off than me, and that's the way I always try to look at it. Is that you'd be thankful for what I have. I'm very thankful for the sight that I have got.
Yeah.
And I've got a lovely wife who helps me all the time. So I can't choose my own clothes, but so what? She's there to do it for me.
And there's someone to blame if you have a
Yes.
bad clothes day. Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
My wife chooses my clothes as well. And I again, you just hinted at another coping mechanism I think many of us use, where you're choosing to focus on being thankful and focusing on the good things that you can do.
Yes.
Because I think often what you focus on fills your vision, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And whether you choose to focus on all the challenges
Yes.
and not quite a woe is me. I mean, we all have woe is me days, and that's fine. But I think it's that overall that approach to what you do.
Yeah.
So Tony, how this obviously podcast is blind faith, and it's how does blindness interact with faith? Where does God and faith fit into your story?
Well, God brought me into the world. My mother, obviously, but through God's love, she had the children she did, and I turn to God if I have difficulties. I mean, the last 15 years of my working life, I was going 100 miles to work to Dartford in Kent, and I had to catch trains, etc., go up to them. I had to find my own accommodation. You just get on with it, and there are difficult times, and there are many times when you pray that because I couldn't read the platform, the train times and things like that. But you just find a way of doing it with God's help.
So are you very conscious of of God's presence or God's help. He's an ever help in times of trouble, as one of the verses.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? We're all a bit, well, I say we, I mean me anyway, guilty of asking for God's help when we're in a bit of difficulty. Perhaps we don't talk to him enough when we're not in difficulty.
And I think it's okay to talk with God when you're in difficulty.
Mm.
But I think as you quite rightly implied it's good to talk to God when you're not in difficulty as well.
Absolutely.
You mentioned your lovely wife a moment ago, and I'm sure in times of difficulty you do say, "Love, can you help me with this?"
Yeah.
But hopefully you say, "Love," when you're not in need as well.
Yeah.
And that's what makes a relationship go rich,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And I think the faith relationship is there. And have you? How has your journey with that been? Because calling God with help, definitely. How about that whole thing of is it just I trust God because of my sight impairment, or is it actually I trust God as part of my life?
Part of my life, definitely. I was very fortunate to be born into a Christian family, very God-fearing parents. We were brought up, from infancy in the church, and it's something which you value so much. It's something that I treasure.
We need that support and that community, whether you have visual impairments or not. Because the truth is, we all have challenges in life, and having that community is a powerful thing, as involving God in that.
Mm.
How does the church interact with your eye condition?
That's interesting because recently our church has um, joined the Roof Breaker movement. I'm sure you know of, which is a Christian-based organisation which is purely its existence is for people with disabilities. It's called Roof Breaker from the story when when the man was lowered through the roof to meet the paralyzed man to meet Jesus because they couldn't get in any other way. So that's where Roof Breakers have got their name from. And yes, our church is certainly, although it's a fairly the church is only 30 years old, but it's in the last couple of years, it's had through the help of a retired vicar's wife who is a member of Roof Breakers, and she has made sure that our church now has the full facilities for people with disabilities, whether it be sight or any other issue.
It's a big deal that we make a difference, but
Mm.
don't make the difference a big deal.
Absolutely.
How do you, as someone with sight loss, how do you feel that interacts with you with your condition? Are you finding it's helping you as well, or because every church does ramps and things like that, which is really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
But is there something that, because I don't think you probably need ramps, but is it more than just ramps and large print? Do you think it's something more that church community can do to help folks?
I think it would really depend on the disability that's being considered or the range of disabilities. Because I can get around on my own, I don't need to hold anybody's hand, or I don't need a white stick, or things that people with acute eyesight issues would need. I don't bump into things. I mean, I suppose the only thing I think of most about my eyesight is afterwards with the community, or with looking at the congregation, because I'm very limited in the distance that I can in the range, in my sight range. So, but there's nobody at church can do anything about that. So it's just the way it is.
And I totally get, the truth is that it's just the way it is.
I'd
And
love to be able to look around the room and wave, and people might wave at me and who don't know that I've got an eyesight problem, and because I don't respond, they might think, oh, he's not very happy today or whatever.
I find that is that people sort of smile or wave, and
Yeah.
they just think, oh, he's ignoring me. How rude is he?
Yeah,
Anyway,
I know.
I'm not. Well, I'm not always rude. Sometimes I am.
Yeah.
And but it's just it is you don't see them. And personally, when you're in a room, a church, in a group of people, and you want to see people,
Mhm.
how do you personally get over that hurdle of trying to connect with people that you can't see?
Yeah, yeah. Well, yes, I suppose it's varied, really. you don't need to talk to everybody every time you go to church, but I tend to chat with the ones that within our range, if you like. Um, yeah.
I think
And if I want to find somebody, I make sure I go and find them.
yeah, you're absolutely. Or you ask someone, "Can you find them for me?" As I do. But
Yeah,
I think you just said something really significant there. Is it's not your job to meet everyone, but just those people who are in your range or your sphere.
yeah,
Is just get them.
yeah.
Because I think sometimes we think I can't do everything, so I'll do nothing.
Mm,
And it just sounds like saying, well, just do what you can,
yeah,
do what you can, and it makes a massive difference.
yeah.
Torch Trust for the blind who are obviously sponsoring this podcast and bringing it to us is that they're seeking to help folks who are challenged with their eyesight, whether
Mm,
it's of limited or complete blindness, and they want to help with resources and connecting people
hmm
and helping churches as well. Have you ever found yourself in a place where you're going, I need to reach out and get a little bit of help along this way?
Possibly at times during my maybe working life or whatever. Now that I'm retired, I find everything pretty easy, really.
I mean, sometimes people just find it's hard to ask, and I think especially it's the seasons as well. I think there are particular seasons that where lives is in, and you're going, I need more help there.
Mm,
And but it sounds like you're reaching out to other people, and some folks who don't have those people in the immediate circle around them is they just need other avenues,
yeah,
which Torch Trust wants to be one of those.
yeah.
But friends and as you referred to your wife already earlier, and there's people around you, and it sounds like you've been supported by that, which is brilliant.
hmm
One thing I'm asking each of my guests, my last question to guests is, if I had a time machine and was to take you back in time to meet your earlier self. So if I was to have the ability to bring us to the young Tony of 1920s-year-old,
hmm
and I was to whip you back there and to stand in front of you, and you got a 5-minute chat with them, what would you say to yourself? How would you encourage or challenge or stretch your younger self?
That's quite a difficult one. I made that my ambition from a young age to do just that. I really did set out, from a very young age to try and do as much as a normally sighted person could, within my ability to. Um, and going back, I would still say exactly the same thing to myself as a 19 and 20-year-old. I think I do think I stretched. I had to. I had no choice but to stretch and go for it or give up. And I do feel so sorry for people like my elder sister who did give up, quite honestly. She wouldn't even cross a road on her own.
Because I mean, I've chatted with other fellow folks who are not with just sight but other disabilities, and said because actually we have a decision of will we step forward or will we stop.
Mm,
And I mean, stretching or stepping forward is a really good thing. And sometimes we do it resentfully, but that's where you find more life. That's
mm.
where you encounter
Absolutely.
more.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard,
Yeah.
and sometimes you need help, and sometimes you face resistance. But
Mm,
I think that stretching forward and saying, okay, how can I do this?
mm.
And I think it's great that you could tell your younger self, just keep doing that, guy. Just keep doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, It's powerful.
To just to qualify that, I mean, my sister, my parents, um, dad got her a job through the RNIB, and I heard him telling people, as because I was 8 years younger, as I was going through my teens, we'll have to do the same for Anthony as well. We'll have to get him a job through the RNIB, and I said, like hell you, I said to myself, like hell you will. I'm going to make my own way in life. I know that sounds very clever. Okay, I may have failed. Maybe I would have had to have gone back to the RNIB. School careers, when I went to the careers office when I first left school, they sort of looked at me and said, "Oh dear, well, yes, we can put you in touch with this, that, and the other," as if I was, you know, um, totally blind. Well, thank the Lord, I'm not totally blind. So
Yeah.
what sight I have got, I've made the most of.
I think it's good. I think it's, we don't have to be defined what other people say.
Mm,
And my experience along my journey, now I was changing. I'm a church minister, and I was changing churches, and my regional minister said, ooh, we're going to have real difficulty finding another church because you're blind. And I went, well, don't tell them. And I said, let them reject me because they don't like me, as opposed to because they don't like the concept of a blind person.
Yeah.
And I could have so easily have let that comment define who I was.
Yes.
And to forward. That's not to say I didn't need help along the way and people have helped.
Absolutely.
But I think it's that I'm not defined by who people say I am. I'm defined who God says I am.
Absolutely.
And I want to walk in that, which it sounds like, that was just that value that pushed you along, Tony, which is brilliant.
He's never going to reject us, is he? Our Heavenly Father.
That's incredibly true. And that God won't reject us, and to be who God defines you to be.
Yeah.
Tony, it's been a real pleasure to chat with you and hear some of your story and
likewise with you.
Oh, you're very kind. And let me just say, you're the only person who said that to me. No, I'm kidding. It is a real privilege to be able to chat and to meet you and to hear stories. And our listeners, I hope when they're hearing different stories, I want to encourage you to share your story and to keep inviting God in and knowing that you can do a lot more than you think you can. But reach out for help and keep going. Thank you for joining, and hope to connect with you again on our podcast of Blind Faith.
If you are living with sight loss or support someone who is, then Torch is here for you. Get in touch at torchtrust.org.